WrestleMania 40 goes down this weekend in the city of brotherly love, and wrestling fans, or wrestling fans, as some people like to call them, they're really pumped up for this one. So let's talk some wrestling. And we're going to do it with the host of the You Know I'm Right podcast, two wrestling enthusiasts, Nick Durst and Joe Calabrese. They join me now. Guys, how's it going?
WrestleMania weekend. Of course it's going well. Very excited for the granddaddy of them all.
I know you guys are pumped up for this, so let's get right into it. Let's start with this. Joe, I'm going to start with you because The Rock's return to WWE has been one of the most talked about developments leading up to WrestleMania 40. How do you think that his presence will impact the overall atmosphere and viewership of this event?
Well, let me start by saying I was on last year with you previewing SummerSlam, and the main event was Roman Reigns and Jey Uso, and I'm pretty sure I mentioned then that The Rock was eventually going to come back, right? So, Dex, what's the name of the podcast?
You Know I'm Right, and
that's right.
You are right. You are right.
That's right.
You are right here.
Of course, we're never wrong. But let's get into the whole atmosphere of the weekend with The Rock. History doesn't necessarily repeat, but it often rhymes, right? What was the main event of WrestleMania 1? It was Roddy Piper and Mr. Wonderful Paul Orndorff against Hulk Hogan, who at that time is in the middle of one of the greatest championship reigns in WWE history, and Mr. T, one of the most well-known actors of his time period, both in TV and film. What do we have here? One of the greatest champions of all time, Roman Reigns, one of the biggest box office draws of all time, The Rock, and two of the greatest professional wrestlers of the last 10 to 15 years, Seth Rollins and Cody Rhodes. It's amazing, right? But WrestleMania itself, as most people know, it's become like the Super Bowl week. It's become, ironically, like Final Four weekend, which is now the same weekend. But it's a spectacle in itself. It draws an incredible amount of tourism and money to the locations it goes to. This year it was in Philly. Last year it was in Los Angeles. The previous year it was in Dallas. Anything The Rock touches is amazing. It's big time. This business is in his blood. As we saw last night, Muhammad Ali's late wife, Layne Ali, presented The Rock with the actual physical People's Championship to tie into the fact that he's called himself the People's Champ since 1998. He inducted his grandmother into the WWE Hall of Fame. So this is in his blood. He's now back in it. He's a part of the TKO board that oversees the WWE and the UFC under one umbrella. So this weekend is going to be very, very special with him. I'm excited to see him. I'm excited about the whole weekend. And I'm excited to see where The Rock's placement when it comes to the Bloodline story is going to be in the coming weeks and months.
Yeah, it's going to be very interesting. And I know a lot of other fans are very excited about his return and him being here at, as you called it, the Super Bowl of wrestling that we're going to see this weekend. Okay, guys, let's get into some of the marquee matchups that have a lot of hype around them. So, Nick, on night one, Saturday, we've got the Women's World Championship match, Becky Lynch versus Rhea Ripley. Does Ripley hold on to her title in this one, or you see Becky Lynch coming out on top?
Dexter, let me talk to you. Yeah, this match right here, it's getting a lot of hype for some reason. I'm a little confused as to why it's getting showcased as one of the all-time great matchups. Rhea Ripley, to me here, over the past 12 months, has had an awful title reign. It has not made much sense. She's sporadically defended the title and showed up for women's feuds. She's primarily been in a lot of the men's feuds this year, going against the Bloodline or helping the Bloodline and going against all these different factions with the Judgment Day. So she's been heavily involved in the men's storylines. And then she just randomly has some matches against Liv Morgan, Raquel Rodriguez, and then Nia Jax, and they just kind of fell flat. I think this is the time and the place to end the reign. Becky Lynch, she is the man for the reason, and to be the man, you got to beat the man. So if Rhea Ripley wants to now become the man of the women's division in WWE, she needs to get this big victory. She's failed before at WrestleMania. She could not beat Charlotte. Becky Lynch is their biggest star, and I think Becky Lynch is going to win this one. I heard that Becky Lynch's contract is up in a month or two, so maybe this is a nice incentive for her, become the champion. So Becky Lynch, she is the fan favorite, and I think Becky Lynch, she gets the title back, which she hasn't had in a number of years now.
All right, Nick, team Becky Lynch. You sound a little disappointed with this fight, like maybe there should have been a different competitor for Becky Lynch, but I understand what you're saying there. Joe, I want to move on to Sunday night with you because the undisputed WWE Universal Championship match goes down. That has Cody Rhodes battling Roman Reigns. Now, we know how dominant Roman Reigns has been the past few years. Does this fight end with Cody Rhodes finally capturing the championship that his father could not?
First off, I just want to say to Nick's point about Rhea Ripley, the mommy supporters aren't going to be too happy with them when they see this. But to talk about the main event, listen, I come from a family that loves pro wrestling, right? Once upon a time, Dex, I don't know if you remember this, there was this thing called the Hot Box, right? Mm-hmm. And with the Hot Box, through the 80s and the early 90s, the mid-90s, that's how we used to watch a lot of the pro wrestling, right? So I come from a family that loved Ric Flair over Hulk Hogan. I also come from a family that loved Dusty Rhodes. My mother's favorite wrestler was Dusty Rhodes. Good nugget. So the Cody Rhodes thing is personal for us too. You know, when he says finishing the story, and it annoys him, the fact that he has to say it, but it means something not only to him, but it means something to a lot of wrestling fans because Dusty Rhodes was beloved by everybody, right? Nick and I did a preview show yesterday for WrestleMania weekend. The truth of the matter is that if you're thinking with your heart, I really want Cody Rhodes to win. He's my favorite wrestler. I want him to earn that moment. I want him to win the WWE Undisputed Championship, a championship that his father never held, right? He held it once in Madison Square Garden, and ultimately it was a dusty finish and it didn't mean anything. The head, unfortunately, knows that the bloodline is big business. The Rock is back. Roman Reigns is still the champion. Solo Sikoa is in their back pocket. You have a match that's probably going to kick off WrestleMania weekend with Jimmy Uso and Jey Uso. There are a lot of factors here, and the winner of night one determines the stipulation for night two. So if the stipulation for night two is bloodline rules, that puts Cody Rhodes at a significant disadvantage. I really, really, really wanted to finish the story. I want to celebrate a championship win like I did with Daniel Bryan 10 years ago when Daniel Bryan beat the odds and he beat Batista, Randy Orton, and Triple H, all members of Evolution in one night. But the head says Roman Reigns. And from a business perspective, Hulk Hogan's reign is now within Roman Reigns' sights. It's in September. The Rock may want to help out his cousin here and get to a point where a match with Roman Reigns and The Rock is for the WWE Championship. So there are a lot of contributing factors here. Ultimately, begrudgingly, I think Roman Reigns is actually going to retain. I think a lot of people in Philadelphia are going to be disappointed that they don't get the Rocky story ending.
Yeah, I think people will be disappointed in that. I think there's a lot of people rooting for Cody Rhodes. And this one, I could see that you're Team Cody Rhodes. You talked about your fandom and your family going back to Dusty Rhodes there. So we'll see how that plays out. But it's interesting. I know where your head wants to go and root for and, you know, the business decisions and all of that. But we'll see. We'll see how it plays out. Okay, finally, this one real quick for you both, because you both are longtime wrestling fans. What are you personally most excited about for WrestleMania 40? Nick, I'll start with you first. What's the one thing you're most excited about for WrestleMania 40?
Well, obviously excited to see The Rock, but what I'm most excited for is to finally see LA Knight get his first big singles match at WrestleMania, and also looking forward to many returns, perhaps. Maybe John Cena shows up, maybe some legends, the Dudley Boys right there in Philadelphia. How about Sylvester Stallone right in his backyard there in Philadelphia? Yo, Adrian, get Rocky out there. That's what I want to say at WrestleMania. All
right, so Sylvester Stallone cameo. Okay, that's a good one. I like that. What about you, Joe?
I'm very interested in the World Heavyweight Championship match because a few years ago, Drew McIntyre won the Royal Rumble. It was one of the greatest individual Royal Rumble performances from Brock Lesnar, and then McIntyre eliminated him, and that kind of catapulted his way into WrestleMania. And then the whole world shut down with COVID, and we had a WrestleMania that was in the Performance Center, which was an amazing event put on under the circumstances, but never quite felt the same because you need 50, 60, 70,000 screaming people in order for WrestleMania to feel like WrestleMania. So Drew McIntyre has been scratching and clawing his way back to the top for the last couple of years. He's looking to have another world championship moment. I hope he wins the world championship. I hope he does it in front of fans. I really, really think he's earned this moment. So he's somebody that I've always had emotional investment in, and he's somebody that I hope comes out on top. And briefly, the Sami Zayn versus Gunther match. Sami Zayn is in a very similar position as Cody Rhodes. He's been billed as the underdog. Gunther has had an incredible Intercontinental Championship reign. And again, when I came off for SummerSlam at the time, that's when Gunther passed Honky Tonk Man for the longest reign. So we have two Rocky-like stories heading into the weekend. For anybody who watches Monday Night Raw, the involvement with Chad Gable, kind of coaching up and being next to Sami Zayn by his side. It's something that WWE does really, really well, those vignettes and those production-style videos. So those are the other things I'm really interested in seeing this weekend.
All right, a lot of good things. Feels like there's something for everyone in terms of being a wrestling fan this weekend at WrestleMania 40. Should be a good one going down Saturday and Sunday night. My guys, Nick and Joe of the You Know I'm Right podcast. They say they're always right. They're going to be right about their predictions for WrestleMania 40. Guys, thank you so much for joining me to talk a little bit of wrestling. I appreciate it. We got to do this again.